In California's Salton Sea Basin, where Earth meets sky in shimmering heat, some mysteries run deeper than the desert itself. On March 15, 2023, at exactly 11:47 p.m., Dr. Elena Vasquez's seismographic equipment recorded something that shouldn't have existed. The readout showed subsurface vibrations with a frequency signature unlike any natural earthquake on record. 23 minutes later, Elena herself would vanish from the face of the Earth. Elena had been conducting routine maintenance on seismic monitoring station Alpha 7, located 14 miles southeast of the Salton Sea in Imperial County, California. The station sat on a barren stretch of hard-pan desert, surrounded by salt-crusted mudflats and the skeletal remains of dead tamarisk trees. At 34 years old, Elena was considered one of the country's foremost experts on microseismic activity, particularly the subtle tremors that preceded major earthquakes along the San Andreas fault system. Her research partner, Dr. James Morrison, expected Elena back at their field laboratory by midnight. She was methodical about schedules, especially when working alone in the hostile desert environment where daytime temperatures routinely exceeded 120 degrees Fahrenheit and nighttime winds could drop visibility to near zero with blowing sand and salt crystals. When Elena failed to return by 1:30 a.m., Morrison drove the 12-mile access road to Station Alpha 7. What he found defied explanation. Elena's white Ford F-150 sat beside the monitoring station with its engine running, headlights cutting through the desert darkness, driver's door hanging open. The air conditioning was on full blast, and her water bottles remained untouched on the passenger seat. Her cell phone lay on the dashboard, showing 17 missed calls from Morrison. The seismic equipment told an even stranger story. Elena's final data upload, transmitted at 11:47 p.m., contained readings that Morrison would later describe to investigators as physically impossible. The sensors had detected vibrations originating from nearly 3 miles underground, far deeper than any natural seismic activity in the region. More disturbing was the pattern. The vibrations appeared to be artificial, rhythmic, almost mechanical in nature. Imperial County Sheriff's Deputy Maria Santos arrived at the scene at 3:15 a.m. She found no signs of struggle, no footprints leading away from the vehicle, and no indication of where Elena might have gone. The desert around Station Alpha 7 stretched unbroken to the horizon, a moonscape of cracked earth and scattered rocks offering no concealment for miles in any direction. But the strangest detail emerged during Deputy Santos's initial report. At 11:52 p.m., just 5 minutes after Elena's final data transmission, U.S. Border Patrol agents stationed 15 miles to the south had reported massive electromagnetic interference that knocked out their radio communications for nearly an hour. Similar interference was reported by the nearby John F. Kennedy Memorial Hospital and the Imperial Irrigation District's emergency services. The timing was too precise to be coincidence. Something had happened at exactly 11:47 p.m. that night. Something that had affected electronic equipment across a 50-mile radius. And at the center of that disturbance, Dr. Elena Vasquez had simply disappeared. The Salton Sea region represents one of Earth's most unforgiving environments, a below-sea-level basin where extreme heat, toxic air, and constant seismic activity create conditions that test both human endurance and scientific equipment. It was here that Elena Vasquez had chosen to establish her research into earthquake prediction, drawn by the area's unique geological characteristics and its position along one of the most active fault systems in North America. Elena's field laboratory occupied a converted double-wide trailer positioned on a concrete pad 3 miles from the nearest paved road. Solar panels and a diesel generator provided power, while a sophisticated array of radio antennas maintained communication with seismic monitoring stations scattered across Imperial County. The interior resembled a high-tech command center, walls lined with computer monitors displaying real-time seismic data, atmospheric conditions, and ground-penetrating radar readings. According to Dr. Morrison. Elena had been studying microearthquakes for 18 months, specifically focusing on the precursor tremors that often preceded major seismic events. Their research was funded through a joint grant from the U.S. Geological Survey and the Department of Energy, part of a broader initiative to develop early warning systems for California's earthquake-prone regions. But Morrison admitted to investigators that Elena's behavior had changed dramatically in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. She had begun working alone more frequently, often remaining at the remote monitoring stations well past sunset despite the dangers of desert travel and darkness. She had also started requesting access to historical geological surveys dating back to the 1940s, particularly those related to underground water systems and cave formations. Elena was brilliant, but she was also obsessive. Morrison told Imperial County investigators during his formal interview on March 18th. She'd found something in the data that excited her, but she wouldn't discuss it. She said she needed to verify her findings before sharing them with anyone, even me. The monitoring station where Elena vanished represented the latest in seismic detection technology. The equipment could register ground movement so subtle that a passing jackrabbit would appear on the sensors. The main detector consisted of 3 seismometers buried 8 feet underground, connected to surface computers by armored cables designed to withstand the extreme temperature fluctuations of the desert environment. Station Alpha 7 had been operational for 14 months and had recorded over 3,000 seismic events, most of them minor tremors registering less than 2 on the Richter scale. But Elena's personal research notes, discovered in her laboratory after her disappearance, revealed that she had identified an unusual pattern in the data. Beginning in December 2022, the station had begun detecting vibrations that didn't match any known geological phenomena. These anomalous readings occurred exclusively between the hours of 11:00 p.m. and 4:00 a.m., always originating from depths exceeding 2 miles underground. More intriguingly, the vibrations appeared to follow a systematic pattern, lasting exactly 47 minutes and recurring every 11 days. Elena had designated these events as Type X seismic anomalies and had begun scheduling her nighttime station visits to coincide with their predicted occurrence. The harsh environment around Station Alpha 7 had claimed equipment before, but never a researcher. Summer temperatures in the region regularly exceeded 125 degrees Fahrenheit, while winter nights could drop below freezing. The air carried a constant burden of salt and alkali dust from the Salton Sea's evaporating shoreline, creating respiratory hazards for anyone working outdoors for extended periods. Wildlife was scarce but dangerous. Desert bighorn sheep, coyotes, and the occasional mountain lion moved through the area, while rattlesnakes and scorpions posed constant threats to unwary researchers. Most concerning were the occasional reports of disoriented pilots flying over the region, claiming that their instruments malfunctioned and that they experienced severe vertigo when passing over certain coordinates. Yet Elena had thrived in this environment. She had modified her field procedures to work efficiently in extreme conditions and had established safety protocols that had kept her research team incident-free for over a year. The idea that she would simply abandon her vehicle and walk into the desert was, according to everyone who knew her, completely out of character. The Salton Sea itself stands as one of California's greatest environmental disasters, a massive inland lake created accidentally in 1905, when irrigation canals breached and Colorado River water flooded the Salton Sink for 2 years straight. What began as a resort destination in the 1950s had devolved into an ecological nightmare, a hypersaline lake with water nearly twice as salty as the Pacific Ocean, surrounded by beaches of crushed fish bones and the ruins of abandoned developments. By 2023, the sea had shrunk to roughly half its historical size, exposing vast mudflats that released toxic dust clouds containing arsenic, chromium, and other heavy metals whenever the desert winds picked up. The remaining water supported only the hardiest fish species, and massive die-offs occurred regularly, washing tons of rotting carcasses onto the salt-crusted shores. It was against this apocalyptic backdrop that Elena had detected her anomalous seismic readings. But the Salton Sea region harbored more than just environmental devastation. The area sat atop the Salton Buttes, a field of mud volcanoes and geothermal vents that released hydrogen sulfide gas and superheated water from deep underground sources. The Southern California Edison Company operated several geothermal power plants in the region, tapping this underground energy to generate electricity for urban areas hundreds of miles away. Rick Gonzalez, supervisor at the nearby Hudson Ranch Power Plant, reported unusual equipment behavior during the early morning hours of March 16. According to his incident report, filed with both company management and Imperial County Emergency Services, the plant's monitoring systems had detected massive pressure fluctuations in the underground geothermal reservoirs, beginning at approximately 11:45 p.m. on March 15th. "I've been working geothermal for 15 years, Gonzalez told investigators, and I've never seen readings like that. The pressure gauges were jumping all over the place, like something was moving around down there. We had to shut down 3 generators as a safety precaution." The timing aligned perfectly with Elena's final seismic readings and subsequent disappearance. But the geothermal anomalies were just the beginning of a series of strange events that night. Residents of Calipatria, a small agricultural town 20 miles northeast of the monitoring station, reported finding hundreds of dead birds along the shores of the Alamo River on the morning of March 16. The birds, mostly pelicans and cormorants, showed no signs of disease or injury. They had simply died in flight and fallen from the sky in a pattern that stretched for nearly 3 miles along the riverbank. Similarly, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife received reports of massive fish kills in the New River, which feeds into the Salton Sea from Mexico. Unlike the periodic die-offs common in the region's polluted waterways, these fish had died simultaneously across a 50-mile stretch of river, suggesting some kind of sudden environmental shock rather than gradual poisoning. Elena's personal research notes, written in a precise handwriting and discovered on her laboratory desk, revealed that she had been tracking these environmental anomalies for months. She had identified correlations between her Type X seismic events and unexplained wildlife deaths, equipment malfunctions at industrial facilities, and even emergency room admissions at regional hospitals for unexplained vertigo and disorientation. One note, dated March 10th, just 5 days before her disappearance, contained a chilling observation. The pattern is accelerating. Type X events now occurring every 8 days instead of 11. Amplitude increasing by 15% per occurrence. Something is building toward a significant event. Now, Elena had also documented strange atmospheric phenomena associated with the seismic anomalies. Residents of the scattered farming communities surrounding the Salton Sea had reported unusual light displays on cloudless nights. Not the typical sheet lightning common to the desert, but focused beams of light that appeared to emanate from the ground itself. Maria Santos, a rancher whose property bordered the Chocolate Mountain Gunnery Range to the east, described seeing columns of blue-white light rising from the desert floor during the early morning hours of several dates that corresponded exactly to Elena's Type X seismic events. "At first I thought it was the Navy doing night exercises," Santos explained to investigators. "But the light wasn't moving like flares or spotlights. It was steady, like someone had built lighthouse beams coming up out of the ground. And there was this humming sound, so low you felt it more than heard it. It was suck-shot." Most disturbing were Elena's final research entries, which suggested she had developed a theory about the source of the anomalies. Her notes referenced artificial cavitation events and non-geological excavation signatures, terminology that implied the underground disturbances were not natural in origin. The last entry in Elena's research log, dated March 14th, contained a single line that would haunt investigators. "Tomorrow night, I'll have proof." No. The investigation into Elena Vasquez's disappearance quickly became complicated by one of the most complex jurisdictional puzzles in American law enforcement. Imperial County encompasses over 4,000 square miles of desert that borders Mexico to the south and Arizona to the east, creating a patchwork of overlapping federal, state and local authorities with competing interests and conflicting priorities. Sheriff Marcus Webb initially treated Elena's case as a straightforward missing person investigation under county jurisdiction. But within hours of the initial report, his department began receiving calls from federal agencies claiming authority over various aspects of the case. The U.S. Border Patrol asserted primary jurisdiction because Elena's monitoring station sat within 25 miles of the international border. Agent Patricia Reeves, who supervised the El Centro sector, argued that Elena's disappearance could be related to cross-border smuggling operations that frequently used the remote desert areas for drug and human trafficking. "We patrol that sector regularly," Agent Reeves told Sheriff Webb during a tense meeting on March 17th. "There's been increased activity in that area lately. Sensors picking up movement, aircraft spotted on radar. Dr. Vasquez might have witnessed something she wasn't supposed to see. But the Border Patrol's involvement raised immediate questions about the timing of Elena's disappearance. Records showed that no patrol units had been scheduled for the Alpha 7 monitoring station area on the night of March 15th, despite the sector's claim of regular surveillance. More puzzling, the electromagnetic interference that had knocked out Border Patrol communications occurred at facilities more than 50 miles from the Mexican border, well outside the range of typical cross-border smuggling activities. The situation became more complex when personnel from Naval Air Station El Centro contacted Sheriff Webb's office. The base, located 40 miles northwest of the monitoring station, maintained restricted airspace over portions of Imperial County for training exercises involving combat aircraft and unmanned aerial vehicles. Commander Sarah Mitchell, the base's operations officer, informed county investigators that Elena's research area fell within a special use airspace designation that required coordination with military authorities for any extended ground operations. More importantly, Commander Mitchell revealed that Elena's seismic research was partially funded through a Department of Defense contract focused on detecting underground facilities and tunnel systems. Dr. Vasquez wasn't just studying earthquakes, Commander Mitchell explained during a classified briefing with federal investigators. Her equipment was specifically calibrated to identify artificial underground structures, particularly those that might be used for weapons storage or clandestine manufacturing. Her research had direct applications to national security. This revelation cast Elena's disappearance in an entirely new light. Rather than being a victim of circumstance or environmental hazards, she might have been targeted because of her work's sensitive nature. Her ability to detect underground facilities made her valuable to foreign intelligence services and dangerous to those operating covert installations. The Department of Energy further complicated the investigation by claiming authority over any activities related to the geothermal power plants in the region. Though investigators argued that Elena's seismic data could reveal classified information about underground energy infrastructure, and that her research materials required security review before being released to local law enforcement. Federal involvement created immediate friction with Sheriff Webb's investigation. County resources were limited, and the department lacked the specialized equipment and expertise needed to analyze Elena's complex scientific data. Meanwhile, federal agencies seemed more interested in securing Elena's research materials than in finding Elena herself. Every agency wanted to take over the case, Deputy Santos later recalled. Border Patrol said it was about smuggling. The Navy said it was about national security. The Department of Energy said it was about infrastructure protection. Meanwhile, we had a missing scientist, and no one seemed focused on actually finding her. The jurisdictional disputes created practical problems for the search effort. Federal agencies restricted access to large areas of desert where Elena might have wandered or been taken. Military aircraft that could have provided aerial surveillance were diverted to other missions. Border Patrol ground sensors that might have detected Elena's movements were classified and unavailable to county investigators. Most frustrating was the discovery that Elena's research funding came from multiple sources with competing interests. While the USGs provided legitimate scientific funding, additional support came from a private defense contractor called Meridian Research Solutions, which specialized in underground detection technologies for military and intelligence applications. Meridian's involvement raised questions about what Elena had actually been investigating. Company representatives refused to discuss the specifics of their contract with Elena, citing national security restrictions. They would only confirm that Elena's work had exceeded expectations and that she had been scheduled to present her findings to government officials in Washington, D.C. the week after her disappearance. As federal agencies circled Elena's case like vultures, Sheriff Webb found himself fighting to maintain any role in the investigation of a missing person from his own county. The bureaucratic maze threatened to consume the search effort entirely, while Elena Vasquez remained somewhere in the vast Imperial County desert, if she was still alive to be found. 3 days after Elena's disappearance, investigators discovered that she had been living a double life. Hidden beneath her reputation as a dedicated earthquake researcher was a network of clandestine contacts and secret investigations that extended far beyond her official scientific work. The first breakthrough came when FBI cybercrime specialists cracked the encryption on Elena's personal laptop, recovered from her field laboratory. The computer contained a hidden partition with files labeled Project Subsurface, containing communications with individuals identified only by code names: Tunnel Rat, Deep Six, and Underground Railroad. These encrypted messages, exchanged over a period of 8 months, revealed that Elena had been collaborating with whistleblowers from various government agencies and private contractors. The communications suggested the existence of a massive underground construction project somewhere in the Imperial Valley, hidden from public knowledge and operating without proper environmental or safety oversight. One message from Tunnel Rat, dated January 15, 2023, contained disturbing details. The boring operations run 24/7 now. They've got crews working in 12-hour shifts, excavating something big about 3 miles down. The spoil disposal is the problem. They're pumping it into abandoned geothermal wells, contaminating the groundwater. Elena, your seismic data could prove this is happening. Border Patrol Agent Carlos Mendoza, who had worked the Imperial County sector for 12 years, provided crucial context during his interview with investigators. Mendoza revealed that Elena had approached him 6 months earlier with questions about unusual activity in the desert's most remote areas. She asked about vehicle traffic in places where there shouldn't be any vehicles, Mendoza explained. Heavy equipment, crews of workers, supply convoys moving at night with their lights off. She showed me satellite photos where you could see new road scars and staging areas that appeared overnight. Mendoza admitted that he had initially dismissed Elena's concerns as conspiracy theories, but he had begun paying closer attention to the areas she identified, and his patrol logs documented several encounters with unmarked vehicles and work crews who claimed to be conducting geological surveys for unnamed private companies. The weird thing was, these weren't local contractors, Mendoza noted. The workers didn't speak English well, but it wasn't Spanish either. Some kind of Eastern European language, maybe Russian. And their equipment was military-grade stuff, not the kind of gear you'd use for routine geological work. The underground activity theory gained credibility when investigators interviewed workers at the nearby geothermal power plants. Multiple employees reported hearing voices and machinery sounds coming from underground locations that weren't connected to any known geothermal operations. Jose Ramirez, a maintenance technician at the Hudson Ranch power plant, described sounds that had puzzled workers for months. We'd be doing routine inspections in the geothermal wells, and you could hear diesel engines running way down deep, maybe 2 or 3 miles underground. Sometimes voices on radio communications, but not in English. Management told us it was probably sound carrying from other plants, but the nearest facility is 15 miles away. Elena's final data upload provided the most compelling evidence for the underground activity theory. Analysis by USG seismologists revealed that her Type X seismic anomalies had characteristics consistent with mechanical excavation rather than natural geological processes. The vibration patterns suggested the operation of heavy boring equipment designed for deep underground construction. Dr. Robert Chen, a seismologist with the California Institute of Technology who reviewed Elena's data at the FBI's request, concluded that the readings were absolutely consistent with large-scale underground excavation using tunnel boring machines similar to those used in subway construction, but operating at unprecedented depths. NASA. The scope of the suspected underground project became clearer when investigators examined Elena's personal research files. She had been tracking seismic anomalies across a pattern of locations, spanning nearly 200 square miles of Imperial County desert. If her theories were correct, someone was excavating an underground facility larger than any known civilian or military installation in the United States. Even more disturbing was Elena's analysis of the project's apparent timeline. Her calculations suggested that the underground construction had been in progress for at least 2 years, with the pace of excavation accelerating rapidly in the months before her disappearance. Her notes indicated that whatever was being built underground was approaching completion. Elena's encrypted communications revealed that she had planned to expose the underground project through academic channels, believing that illegal environmental violations and potential threats to regional seismic stability required immediate public attention. Her final message to Deep Six, sent just hours before her disappearance, contained an ominous warning. They know I'm getting close. If something happens to me, make sure my data gets to the USGs and the EPA. The public has a right to know what's being built under their land. The investigation into Elena's secret network revealed connections to environmental activists, former government employees, and at least 3 individuals who had lost their security clearances for unauthorized disclosures of classified information. These contacts had been feeding Elena intelligence about underground projects, military contracts, and government activities throughout the southwestern United States. Most troubling was the discovery that Elena wasn't the only researcher who had vanished while investigating suspicious underground activity. Records revealed that at least 4 other scientists and environmental investigators had disappeared over the previous 3 years while working on projects related to unexplained seismic activity, groundwater contamination, and unauthorized construction in remote areas of California, Nevada, and Arizona. As federal investigators closed in on Elena's underground network, the scope of what she had uncovered became clear. She hadn't just been studying earthquakes. She had been documenting evidence of what might be the largest covert construction project in American history. The search for Elena Vasquez became one of the most extensive missing person operations in Imperial County history, involving over 200 personnel from 17 different agencies and covering nearly 800 square miles of some of America's most inhospitable terrain. Search operations began at dawn on March 17th, with teams deployed in a systematic grid pattern, radiating outward from monitoring station Alpha 7. Imperial County Sheriff's Search and Rescue Coordinator Tom Bradley established base camp at the Salton City Airport, using the abandoned runway as a staging area for helicopter operations and mobile command units. The initial search focused on a 10-mile radius around Elena's abandoned vehicle, operating on the assumption that she might have left the monitoring station on foot and become disoriented or injured in the dark desert. Teams equipped with thermal imaging equipment, search dogs, and all-terrain vehicles combed through arroyos, abandoned buildings, and geothermal installations where Elena might have sought shelter. But the desert environment proved hostile to both searchers and their equipment. Daytime temperatures exceeded 110 degrees Fahrenheit by mid-morning, forcing operations to suspend during peak heat hours. The search dogs, specially trained for desert tracking, lost Elena's scent within 200 yards of her vehicle, suggesting either that she had been picked up by another vehicle or that environmental factors had eliminated the scent trail. Most puzzling were the equipment malfunctions that plagued search teams in specific geographic areas. GPS units would lose satellite signals, radio communications would fade to static, and helicopter pilots reported severe vertigo when flying over certain coordinates. These affected zones formed a rough pattern around locations where Elena had recorded her most significant seismic anomalies. We'd have perfect communications throughout most of the search area, reported helicopter pilot Lieutenant Maria Garcia of the California Highway Patrol. But when we crossed certain invisible lines, usually near the geothermal plants or Elena's monitoring stations, all our electronics would go haywire. It was like flying through some kind of electromagnetic field. You sure ye? Thermal imaging from aircraft revealed extensive underground cavities beneath the search area. Far more than could be accounted for by natural cave systems or known geothermal formations. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed the existence of void spaces at depths ranging from 50 feet to over 500 feet underground. But no surface access points could be located despite intensive searching. The discovery of these underground spaces prompted calls for specialized cave rescue teams, but attempts to access the subsurface areas failed. Drilling equipment brought in from Los Angeles encountered unexpected resistance at shallow depths, with drill bits becoming damaged by materials that weren't supposed to exist in the local geology. We tried to drill exploratory holes near the areas where thermal imaging showed the biggest underground spaces, explained drilling contractor Mike Santos. But we kept hitting something metallic about 20 feet down. Not natural rock or minerals, manufactured metal, like steel plates or concrete reinforced with rebar. Someone had built something down there. Elena's family provided additional information that complicated the search effort. Her sister, Dr. Carmen Vasquez, revealed that Elena had been receiving anonymous threatening messages for several weeks before her disappearance. The messages, delivered through untraceable email accounts, warned Elena to stop digging where you don't belong and threatened consequences for those who asked too many questions. Carmen also disclosed that Elena had prepared what she called an insurance policy, copies of her research data, and communications stored in a safety deposit box in San Diego. Elena had given Carmen the key with instructions to turn the materials over to federal authorities if anything happened to her. The contents of Elena's safety deposit box, accessed by FBI investigators on March 22nd, contained disturbing evidence of a broader pattern of intimidation. Elena had documented attempts to hack her computer systems, surveillance of her laboratory by unmarked vehicles, and at least 3 break-in attempts at her research facilities. She had also compiled a list of 12 other researchers working on similar projects who had experienced harassment, equipment theft, or threats. Search teams expanded their efforts to include areas where Elena might have been taken against her will. Investigators examined abandoned buildings, remote airstrips, and industrial facilities throughout Imperial County. They interviewed employees at geothermal plants, agricultural operations, and border security installations, looking for anyone who might have seen Elena or noticed suspicious activity. The search took on international dimensions when Mexican authorities reported finding Elena's research notebook near the border fence 40 miles south of the monitoring station. The notebook contained Elena's handwriting and appeared to have been deliberately placed where it would be discovered by Border Patrol agents. But fingerprint analysis revealed no evidence that Elena herself had ever handled the notebook in that location. Someone wanted us to think Elena had crossed into Mexico, Deputy Santos concluded. But the notebook was too clean, too obvious. It felt like misdirection, like someone trying to pull our attention away from the real search area. As the search entered its second week, resources began to dwindle and federal agencies started withdrawing their personnel. The official search operation was scaled back to weekend volunteer efforts, while investigators focused on following paper trails and analyzing Elena's research data. But search teams continued to report equipment malfunctions in the same geographic zones where Elena had detected her seismic anomalies. Whatever was causing the electromagnetic interference was still active, still affecting anyone who ventured too close to certain underground areas. Elena Vasquez remained missing, but her research equipment at monitoring station Alpha 7 continued to operate, recording the same mysterious underground vibrations that had first captured her attention. The Type X seismic events were still occurring, now every 6 days instead of 8, building towards some unknown culmination. 6 months after Elena Vasquez disappeared into the Imperial County desert, her research equipment continues to function with mechanical precision, recording data that grows more disturbing with each passing day. The automated systems at monitoring station Alpha 7 have documented 47 additional Type X seismic events since Elena's disappearance, each one more powerful than the last. Dr. James Morrison, now the sole manager of the research project, has observed a troubling acceleration in both the frequency and magnitude of the underground disturbances. What began as subtle vibrations occurring every 11 days has evolved into regular seismic events happening every 72 hours, with amplitudes that suggest massive mechanical activity at depths exceeding 4 miles underground. Elena was right about something building toward a significant event, Morrison told federal investigators during his final debriefing in September 2023. The pattern she identified has continued to evolve exactly as she predicted. Whatever's happening down there, it's approaching some kind of completion. The most chilling discovery came from acoustic analysis of Elena's final recordings. Sound engineers at the FBI laboratory in Quantico identified subsonic vibrations embedded in the seismic data, sounds below the threshold of human hearing that required sophisticated equipment to detect and analyze. These subsonic recordings, when played back at accelerated speeds to bring them into the audible range, revealed what appeared to be mechanical sounds. The rhythmic operation of heavy machinery, the movement of large metal objects, and most disturbing of all, what sounded like human voices speaking in an unknown language. Dr. Sarah Kim, a linguistic analyst with the National Security Agency, spent 3 months attempting to identify the language patterns in the recordings. Her conclusion was both fascinating and terrifying. The vocalizations show consistent grammatical structures and phonetic patterns that don't match any known human language family. Either we're dealing with a completely isolated linguistic group, or these sounds aren't being produced by human speakers at all. The investigation into Elena's disappearance officially closed in October 2023, with federal authorities citing lack of evidence and jurisdictional complexities as reasons for suspending active search efforts. But the case file remains classified, and several key pieces of evidence have been sealed under national security provisions. What investigators did reveal was deeply troubling. Elena's research had uncovered evidence of similar underground disturbances at 17 other locations across the southwestern United States, all in remote areas near geothermal installations or military facilities. In each case, local researchers or environmental investigators had reported suspicious activity before either abandoning their work or, in 3 documented cases, disappearing entirely. The Salton Sea region itself has continued to experience unexplained phenomena. Pilots flying over Imperial County report GPS anomalies and instrument malfunctions in the same areas where Elena recorded her seismic disturbances. Local residents described low-frequency humming sounds that seemed to emanate from underground, particularly during the early morning hours when Elena's Type X events typically occurred. Perhaps most significant was the discovery of unusual mineral deposits in Elena's abandoned research vehicle. Forensic analysis revealed trace amounts of rare earth elements that don't occur naturally in Imperial County geology. Neodymium, dysprosium, and terbium, materials commonly used in advanced electronics and magnetic systems. Those elements don't exist in the local geology, explained Dr. Robert Martinez, a geochemist with the California Geological Survey. Elena would have had to travel hundreds of miles to encounter those materials naturally, or she would have had to come into contact with highly sophisticated technological equipment that uses those elements in its construction. The mineral traces suggested that Elena had been somewhere, or had encountered something, involving advanced technology before her disappearance. But where she had been and what she had encountered remains unknown. Today, monitoring station Alpha 7 continues its automated operation, faithfully recording seismic data that grows more anomalous with each passing month. The facility operates on solar power and satellite communications, requiring no human maintenance to continue its endless surveillance of the underground mysteries that claimed Elena's attention. Local residents have reported seeing lights in the desert near the monitoring station, usually during the early morning hours, when the Type X events occur. These aren't the usual aircraft lights or ground-based illumination. Witnesses describe beams of coherent light emerging from the Earth itself, visible for only minutes before disappearing. The questions surrounding Elena Vasquez's disappearance remain unanswered. Was she a victim of natural hazards in one of America's most dangerous environments? Did she uncover evidence of illegal underground construction that someone was willing to kill to protect? Or did her research lead her to discover something far stranger than simple human activity beneath the Imperial County desert? What investigators know for certain is that Elena Vasquez was a brilliant scientist who stumbled onto something extraordinary. Her equipment continues to record evidence of massive underground activity that defies conventional explanation. The Type X seismic events persist, building in intensity and frequency toward an unknown culmination. Somewhere beneath the salt-crusted shores of the Salton Sea, in the deepest foundations of the Earth itself, something continues to operate with mechanical precision. Whether that something is the product of human engineering or represents something far more mysterious, Elena's fate remains tied to the secrets buried miles beneath the California desert.